Hey everybody, this is Seth with Quilting on a Budget. So I'm going to show you how to do a quick tutorial on making a hospital mask. Quick disclaimer, I called my local hospital prior to making these. I urge anybody that is going to try to make them and donate them to the hospital, fire department, police department, any of our first responders, please call ahead of time and get the approval from them. Some people are accepting them, however, some people have specific requirements and they want specific fabric and so on. So I made these for the hospital with prior approval, and I urge you to do the same. I know everybody wants to help, but we want to make sure that our help is not in vain. So please check with your local hospital prior to making these. Okay, to make this project, you're going to need an 8x14 piece of fabric, and you're going to need 2 strips 1.5 inches wide by 34 inches long. The first step, using a 1/4 inch seam, we're going to take our fabric right side to right side. We're going to sew from one side down to the other here. You can see I've taken the fabric and just folded it in half. And when you're done, you'll have a little tube. So you'll take that and you're going to turn it inside out, so that way now your fabric is facing right side out again. Okay, so now that our fabric is back to right sides facing out, we're going to take the seam that we just created and put that at the bottom, and now we're going to press our piece really good and flat. That way our next step is going to be putting pleats in the fabric, and having it pressed nicely makes this next step easier. So what I'm doing, I roughly measured. I wasn't very really specific on this, but I roughly went from the bottom and just folded it up about 1 inch. You'll see what I mean here. And I'm gonna make 3 pleats like that, and just kind of take them and eyeball them. And by the time you're done with all your pleats, from top to bottom, you'll have about a 3-inch tall piece from top to bottom. Okay, the last step, just to make sure everything lays flat, I'm just spritzing it with a little water to create a little bit of steam. You probably want to refrain from putting any kind of starch or any kind of chemicals on these, because they're going to be going to the hospital, and we don't know if anybody has allergies or anything like that for the person that's going to end up wearing them. So I'm just using water, and that way I'll have some steam, and it'll really lay these pleats nice and flat. That'll be important for the next step, which is going to be to stick it in the sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch seam down both sides. Okay, so if you're someone that uses pins, you may want to go ahead and pin your pleats in place. I don't normally do that. I'm just kind of being careful as I stick them on the machine. And as you can see, I've got my seam ripper. I'm going to use that as a stiletto just to kind of hold everything in place. But if you use pins, then by all means, go ahead and pin these and keep them in place as you run them through the sewing machine. Now, I did one side using a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So this hasn't taken very long, and we're almost done. Okay, now that we've got a 1/4 inch seam on either side, we've got our pleats held in place. I'm taking my scissors here, and I'm just trimming down that seam just a little bit more, because when we go and put our straps on either side, we want it to be to where there's not a whole lot of extra outside of your stitch line. That'll make putting on these straps a lot easier. So trim that down, and then let's get these straps made real quick. Okay, so to make the strings that's going to be used to tie this mask onto your face, we're going to take our 1.5 inch wide strips and we're going to fold them in half, and we're going to press them in half to get our center line. Okay, so now that we've got our strip and we've pressed it all the way down, we have a nice crease going down the center. So now you're going to take your raw edge of your strip and you're going to fold those into the center, and then you're going to have a nice folded edge on either side, and you're going to fold those together. So now you're creating a string, for lack of better words, probably about maybe 1/8 inch, a little bit bigger, and we're going to press that all the way down the length, the 34 inches length of this strip, and you're going to do that to both of them. Okay, now that we've got both of our strings pressed in half, we got them ready to go. So we're going to take them and we're going to find the center of our string here, and when we do that, we're going to open it up and lay our mask, the edge of our mask, inside that string. Now, we're not going to start out by sewing from the end. We want to sew the mask onto the string first, as you can see I'm doing here. And then once we get that done, we'll go back and sew the whole entire thing. Okay, now that we have the mask portion sewed to the string, now we're going to go to the very end of our strip, and now we're going to sew this together. That way it's not going to come undone. So you can't really use a 1/4 inch seam here. You just have to kind of eyeball it, get your needle as close to the edge as possible, and just eyeball it down the length of this. That's all I did. You may have to stop occasionally, make sure you're still lined up, and then keep on going. Now, I went ahead and sewed back over the mask portion that I had already stitched, and that way it'll just have a little bit of extra strength. These straps aren't really necessarily going to break or whatever, but you want to keep the mask attached, so having that extra line of stitching there won't hurt. So okay, we're going to finish this one, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, and the last thing is to run another stitch along the top, a 1/4 inch from the top. And what that do was make a little channel to where you can snip a tiny hole and run a bread tie or a pipe cleaner in there, and that will give you the metal piece. That way they can form it around their nose if they want to. And that's it. We've made a mask. So how simple was that? Okay, so as you can see here, they go on just like a regular mask. Take the 2 top strings over the top of your ear, tie them behind your head, and whenever you get that comfortable and how you like it, then you can take the bottom strings and tie them as well. The nice thing is that it goes over your nose and up under your chin, so it provides some pretty good coverage. So the nice thing between this versus the elastic is they're pretty adjustable, kind of a one size fits all. So pretty simple to do, pretty easy to breathe through, and there you go. There you have it. Here is our mask. To find out more about Million Masks a Day, please visit Just Wanna Quilt or Quilting on a Budget, both on Facebook. You can also find us on millionmaskaday.com.